Tesla, Mr. Tesla, Nikola Tesla, and then it is
Your
between.
voice is not audible, sir.
Is it audible now?
Okay, no, it's okay.
One second. Yeah, is it clear right now?
Sir, it's a clear, sir. You can continue, sir.
Fine, fine, fine. So this, if we have to talk about DC microgrid, we have to go back to 1880, where the starting point was war of currents. That is between Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison. Edison was running a company called Edison Electric Light Company, and Nikola Tesla Westinghouse Electric Company, where he was working. Actually, he was a junior of Thomas Edison in Edison Electric Company itself, where he found AC generators and also concept of transformers were built. What is war of currents? That's the thing we have to just know initially, and then we'll go step by step into how we reach to DC microgrid. See, war of current is for distribution. It was they were fighting among themselves, Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison, that whether DC will work for a better distribution or AC. As Nikola Tesla had the concept of generator and the transformer, uh, uh, the level of output voltage from the transformer, they can step up and step down. That was possible. He was able to claim that AC is the best one, and he actually, Nikola Tesla and the Westinghouse Electric Company gained market because AC would travel for a long distance because of the higher voltage level. But Thomas Edison, he was uh, the problem was they had a mercury arc lamp, which is the one which we use it to light. The lighting was possible using mercury arc lamp only. So for that, it was during that time it was proved that AC was better, and they were able to make the AC to travel to long distance, and then they can step down according to the arc lamp's voltage, and they were able to do that. But what Edison was thinking was lighting using using DC itself we light, and that was his idea. But the thing was, as it was a long distance, maintaining the voltage was a problem, that they were actually, they didn't compromise among themselves, and they had a big fight. If you see war of currents in internet, you will get to know what all things were happening during that time. Next, it was Nikola who won the war eventually. Next thing is what we would come to a conclusion is, maybe Edison, if he would have met Peter Cooper Hewitt. He also worked in Edison company only. Peter Cooper Hewitt, who developed the mercury arc rectifier initially. So that was the starting point of the power electronic concept. So they would have won the war if these both Thomas Edison and Peter Cooper Hewitt would have joined hands. They would have actually, maybe they would have won the war. So why is that so? Because as there is a higher level of higher the creating higher level of voltage and reducing it was not possible using the uncontrolled. This was a challenge. That is, in order to boost or buck the voltage must be a challenge. So because of that, maybe the people during that time, they didn't wanted a DC line to be used for distribution or transmission. So when that's what this is how these two people would have won the war. That's what we are going to go actually. So the first thing is, I wanted to tell you that initially the microgrid, the word microgrid surfaced into into the technical journals or into technical fraternity when Robert H. Lasseter introduced it in 2001 actually. This is just microgrid. He doesn't talk about DC microgrid. He was talking about microgrid. That means that a baby of a grid which can work by itself. That's what is microgrid. So now this is about microgrid. But in 2004, this word called DC microgrid surfaced actually in technical journals. It is a conference. Later on, it came into many transactions also. So this 2004 in IEEE. When it comes to IEEE, it is 2004 which DC microgrid surfaced into a technical papers. So why? So now we have to know what is a grid and a microgrid, and then we'll go into what is a DC microgrid. See, when we are talking about traditional microgrid, see we know that the transmission the generators generate higher voltage because it has to travel for a long distance, and you will get a better voltage regulation at the residential and the commercial end. So here so that's why you know that we'll be having higher voltage generation at the transmission portion. Here it is given as 400 kilovolt. India has 700 kilovolt also, like that is one of the transmission systems higher voltage level. And then when it comes to the transmission level itself, 66 kV we'll be reducing it, I mean stepping it down. And then when it comes to distribution side, it will be 22 or 11 kV. And then when it reaches our residential area, it will be 415 volt, or it is told as 0.4 kilovolt when you talk to people those who are working in distribution system. So this is a traditional way how we'll be using transformers to step it up and transmit it to longer distance. And again, when it comes to the feeder level, 66 kV, and then when it comes to the distribution level, 11, 33, and 22 kV. And then when it comes to the secondary distribution, or when it comes to our residential area, it will be coming to 415 volt in 3-phase. Fine. Then what is a microgrid? When we talk about traditional grid and a microgrid, what is a microgrid? That's what we have to know. See, first thing is usually microgrid, usually it will be connected to the distribution network only. So when you I think my cursor, if you are able to follow my cursor, you can see that it can be you can actually see that it actually will be using a distribution. We can connect that microgrid in the distribution system only. So when we you can just check it here. Until here, actually 11 kV or 22 kV, in this portion only our microgrid will be working. When you are taking a complete transmission system, in the distribution portion only this whole microgrid will be working. So that means that it is a offspring of the main grid. So microgrid, it is a offspring of the main grid. When you are having a bigger grid, in that only the distribution portion, if you are taking, that is the microgrid. So the voltage level will be around 20 kilovolt, or here if it is a standard one, 11 kV or 22 kV, we will be making it to be joined here. Okay, so how does the microgrid look? You can see here it is a typical AC microgrid. We'll come to the DC microgrid in the next slide, but here it is a AC microgrid. That means that there is a line which is having a common connection with all the AC power producer and AC power end user. You can take it as here all these are producers. If I'm taking wind, it will be AC to AC. Maybe you will be using AC regulators and cyclo converters. You can use here to connect it. Matrix converter also you can use it, and you can connect it to the AC AC line. And then when you are talking about PV will give you DC, that we know it is photovoltaic is a electrostatic. You will be having DC here, and from DC to AC you will be connecting it to the line. And fuel cell, which is unidirectional, that is it produces but it will not receive the power back. So this also produces, you have a inverter here. These are all converters actually. These squares are all converters where DC to AC you can convert, and then you can connect it to the main AC line. Okay, this is a point of connection where it gets connected to the distribution network. So here maybe you will be having 0.4 kilovolt as the distribution voltage. So if there is excess power, you can connect it to the distribution network itself. So this, when you connect it to the distribution network, the voltage has to be stepped up. So that's why you have a transformer here and you connect it to the distribution network, which will be around 20 kilovolt, or even that is 11 kV, 22, 33. In that one of the kilovolt we can take it as 20 kilovolt. That is not a standard representation. You can go for any 22 or 11 or 33. Fine. So okay, when we are talking about this main grid, the microgrid, there are classification how microgrids are classified. That means that you have two types of classification. One is with the capacity of power it can produce, and another one is the topology. So first we'll go with the capacity of power actually. So here according to IRENA, that is International Renewable Energy Agency, you have a particular category in which the rating of this rating of the the grids, different type of grids will be given in this way. See, when you are talking about yeah, when you are talking about pico grid, it is for a house. You can take it for a small house. You can use pico grid, that is 0 to 1 kilowatt. And then if it is a bigger house, you can go for nano grid, that is between 0 to 5 kilowatt. And then microgrid starts from 5 to 100, not 0 to, it is 5 to 100 kilowatt microgrid. And then in the mini grid, 0 to 100 megawatt. Okay. So when we are talking about this categorization, see in different papers you will see different categorization, but International Renewable Energy Agency has categorized like this only. But when you see a microgrid, some of the microgrid has 700 kilowatt also. The categorization they in that particular country, or if you see in different journals or in different standards, you will find different categorization of microgrids power rating. It will not be 0 to 100 kilowatt, but sometimes it will be 700 kilowatt, 400 kilowatt also. It comes into microgrid. You can see that, but International Renewable Energy Agency has not done that way. This is the standard way they have mentioned. Fine. And then when we talk about topology based, we have got three types of topology. That is not this. Yeah, there are three topologies, that is AC, DC and hybrid microgrid. There are three types of topology, that is AC, DC and hybrid microgrid. So one that I was telling in the beginning, it was AC. I think you remember I had put that it was a offspring of the main grid. So that is the AC microgrid itself. If you see the second, third slide, you will get to know that it is AC microgrid only I was talking about. That means that all AC will be connected, and to the distribution system you have a transformer and it is connected to the distribution network. But when it comes to DC microgrid, all you have to convert into DC, and it has to be connected to a single line. That is the DC line, and it has to be connected to the point of coupling by using a inverter here. You have to have AC to the distribution network, so you have to have a inverter here, and then you can use a step up transformer to be connected to the distribution network. So here wind turbine, AC to DC, here DC, PV, it is DC to DC, here DC. And here when it comes to load, AC loads, then you have to invert it and give it to the AC load. Here to the DC load, maybe cars, if you are charging or anything like that, there you have to again convert into DC, and you have a EVSE and onboard chargers which does the work actually. So you have to convert that into DC, and on the onboard there will be another DC converter on the car itself. So EVSE and onboard chargers, that will be for cars. And then here DC to AC you will be converting, and you will be connecting it to the distribution network. When all the DC is connected, you will get a better power. That's what we assume here. And then you convert into AC and connect it to the distribution network. This is the DC microgrid. See, when the line is DC, then it is DC microgrid. When the line is AC, then it is called AC microgrid. Fine. Then hybrid microgrid. So when we talk about hybrid microgrid, we have to have both DC and AC lines actually. So here, one second. Yeah. Okay. Fine. See, when we have DC and AC combined together, it is the hybrid microgrid. You can have a DC bus here, DC bus here. You can see that it is actually giving from the DC bus, it is either giving to the DC load or AC load. Here it is DC to DC, it is not AC. I think it is a mistake here. DC to DC, and that will be connected to the DC load. And then here AC load, you have to invert it, DC to AC, and you will be connecting it to the AC load. This is the DC bus we are talking about. Sources are battery and PV here. PV is again it is DC to DC, it is connected here, and battery also DC to DC connected here. So this is the DC bus. And then when you want to connect that to AC bus, this is the AC bus, then you can either this is DC to DC and it is connected to the AC bus. This is an inverter. So sometimes when you have a better supply, that is a better supply from the PV and the battery, you will be supplying to the AC bus. But when you have a better supply, you don't have a better supply here in PV and battery, that is it can't satisfy this load, then you will be having AC to DC. You will have a bidirectional operation in this converter. You have DC to AC also, you can use the same converter, and AC to DC also you can use the same converter. That we will discuss in the later things. Here it is connected to the AC bus. AC bus, again it can have wind, PV, everything converted to AC and connected to the AC bus. Fine. AC bus will have its own loads, like the AC load, the residential load, and then high power quality load with the dynamic voltage regulator. You can use it, and you can maintain a good power voltage level in the high quality load actually. And then if AC has more power, it can also supply to the through the transformer, it can supply to the distribution. Fine. Okay. So this is the hybrid microgrid. Okay. Can a microgrid work on their own? That is, can it be isolated? Can it be islanded or not? Yeah, it can work in a islanded mode, but with a battery. Battery is must when you are using a islanding operation. So that we'll come to that later. But here you can see a high definition or high speed controller is needed for making this happen. That is, if you having if you have a solar power, yes, a wind power, yes, you have to take, and then you have to also use a battery and a high speed and high advanced controller. You'll be needing it for um, controlling the power. Actually, there are two things which is varying. One is the load will be varying, and the input that is given, that also, that is from the wind and the solar, that also is going to be varying. So both the variation, this particular processor or the controller has to take care. The that those things will be coming in the next slides, coming slides. Just as an introduction, yes, it can be working by its own. Microgrid can work by its own. It doesn't need a support from a main grid. If that is dependent. If the load is critical or not, that is dependent. Fine. So what are the advantage of DC microgrid? See, when when we are taking DC microgrids advantage, you have to think that the transmission, the distribution, mainly microgrids are working in distribution range only. So the distribution losses that comes because of the distribution lines and the transformers, yeah, distribution lines and the transformers. You can see that if you are using a AC microgrid, for example, this is not for the weight loss thing. It is about the losses. See, the losses will be this much when you are using a AC microgrid, but when you are using a DC microgrid, you will have a lesser loss. That is the idea about this particular image. That is, when you are using a AC microgrid, you will have higher losses, and when you are using a DC microgrid, you will have a lesser loss. Fine. Then about this this green thing, I think you'll be seeing. See, I think you would have seen about the North Indian grid failure. You would have seen that. Yeah. Yeah. See, actually, the cyber attack that happens on the complete transmission line. If there is a cyber attack happening, that is, if somebody is actually hacking the whole system, then what will happen? The whole grid will be like how it happened in 2012. The complete North Indian grid got that is lockdown was there. That is complete blackout was there. There are two things called blackout and brownout. So it was a blackout, complete blackout was there. But when you are using a microgrid, this attack will be avoided because it is local in nature. Hello. Yeah, yeah. Is there anybody asking questions now? Yeah, yeah. Shall I continue? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Continue, sir.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So this the transmission. If you are using a microgrid, the cyber security, cyber attack is avoided, and so that's why we are actually, that is one thing that improves the security of the power supplies, or you always try to supply a very good power without the blackout or brownout. And this is this blue, yeah, this is the catastrophic effect. That is, this is what I was telling here also. If there is a problem, even this is because of the cyber security I was talking, cyber attack. But here, if there is a fault occurring also in the line, then the microgrids is separated from the main grid. So what happens is this catastrophic effect can be avoided completely. So that is why I've made this local. This is to tell that it is completely local in nature. So you'll be having more security because it is completely local in nature. That is, if there is a rural electrification happening, then that will not because of the main grids problem or fault. This will not get affected because it is separated. Fine. Then about the risk of financial about the financial risk, when you can easily see that DC microgrid will not cost you much because of the transformers and the transmission lines that we are going to use. It will not be because only two lines you are going to bring it to the until the from the production to the load side. You'll be using only a two lines. So mainly the cost of investment of for capital investment will be very much reduced. Fine. And then here about the peak load, actually the when the DC microgrid is connected to the grid, or when a battery is there in the DC microgrid itself, these peak loads are taken care actually. So the microgrid will not make the main grid to be stressed out because of the peak loads. A microgrid can help to have the peak loads removed because of the battery storage that it has. So that you can actually the peak shaving, it is called peak shaving, which actually it is very good for the grid's health. Fine. And then next thing is the PPP, the public private partnership. That means that we have if somebody is ready to uh, that is deregulate the power, means if somebody is liking to invest on power generation, so we can the government can go for a public private partnership, and lot of investment chances on renewable and other power supplies can be taken care. So this is the public private partnership can happen. And then locally lot of jobs can be created because it is completely local in nature, and the microgrid, lot of jobs for the local youths we can create. And then people who are in rural area, they get jobs, technical jobs easily at their place itself. So that is one advantage. And then the first advantage I should have told is this microgrid has renewable energy as the source, mainly renewable energy as a source, like wind and solar. So pollution is here they are actually wiping out the smoke. That means the pollution is reduced. Fine. So that is one thing, that is one of the advantage. And then another advantage here is it is active in nature. See, active here means that when we are using a traditional distribution system, what happens is the power what comes from the distribution from the transmission area, you just take it and you have to supply. And usually we go for one day ahead forecasting and a week ahead forecasting for controlling how much power has to be spent, or how much power has to be given, and where load shedding has to happen. Everything you actually decide by a if it is a smart grid, it happens automatically. So here this microgrid actually has to be always smart because of the ICT technology, that is information and communication technology you have to use. That means that you use sensors and IoT, and transfer the sensor data to one place and control according to whether the load has to be shedded, or the power has to be increased, or battery has to be used. These kind of control, everything the microgrid has to take care. So that's why it can't be passive, it has to be always active. And you'll also get to know in the later slides why it must be always active. That we'll get to know in the coming slides when we are discussing about the technicality of DC microgrid. Okay, next thing is the data, the processing of data. See, actually when we are using this complete transmission line, if you're using a complete transmission line, that is in the left hand side, you have large database. Okay, so in order to control a complete smart grid of the whole grid, right, what you have to do is, for example, if you are planning a load forecasting for next day, so what we usually do is, the previous year's data, everything we take it, and for next day, tomorrow, what will be the probable load, or because of the that is upgradation of the use of power, what will be the what may be the power that is that will be needed for tomorrow's distribution, that we'll be predicting online. If, for example, if we are predicting it online, so the number of data that is used for that is very heavy when you are using a traditional microgrid. But when it comes to traditional grid, when it comes to microgrid, you have very less data, and especially it is local in nature, and the prediction of load for the next hour also we can predict, even hour also you can predict by using the less number of data that is available. So the data, if it is bigger, then it will be a problem, because you need to store it, and you have to the processing speed, everything is must be taken care. But when it comes to microgrid, that is not a problem at all. Next, so these are the advantage. I think almost 7-8 advantages I've told. Mainly for DC microgrid, the advantages, if you see, it is this is the losses are less. That is the advantage of DC microgrid. And then the investment is less, and peak shaving is very effective, and it is active. These all come for DC microgrid, although other advantages is common for a microgrid. So particularly for DC microgrid, these four are particular. Fine. So then okay, what all is needed for a microgrid? So that I'll tell you here. See, you need a advanced control system. As I was telling you, advanced control system is needed. So why is that needed? What this advanced control system does in a DC microgrid? See, the first thing is, we have if it is connected to the grid, and if it is not connected to the grid, that has to be taken care, and that has to be told to the controller whether it is connected to the grid or not connected to the grid. So controller has to sense that also, whether it is connected or not. So what are the data that you will get? See, first thing is, you will be getting the data of how much power is generated from the solar panel or wind generator or anything like that. You will be getting it as the input. And next thing is, how much load is connected to the microgrid. So if it is a DC microgrid, how much DC load is connected, or how much AC load after inversion it is connected. So that you have to monitor it. And then if it is connected to the grid, or whether it is not connected to the grid, that is needed. Because if it is connected to the grid, then if there is less power in the DC microgrid, then you can use that bidirectional converter, which can actually supply to the grid as AC and get the power as DC. That bidirectional converter, you have to instruct it to get the power from the grid. And then if there is a higher load, chances of higher load and lesser power generation, then load shedding usually happens when it is not connected to the grid. So if you don't connect it to the main grid, microgrid will have a load shedding, and peak shaving can happen by using the batteries. Okay, so these are the things we will be dealing actually. So the advanced control system has to assess whether how much load will be there, whether there will be a load shedding, whether the power that is coming from the renewable energy is enough, and whether there is a power cut from the main grid, or if there is a power, how to get it bidirectionally, that is as DC. Fine. So this advanced control system is needed for any DC microgrid. Fine. This is island. That is, I'm talking about the islanding mode. That is whether I was telling that the main grid, it is a baby of the main grid. Whether that baby can work by itself, whether it can what is that, supply and control by itself or not. Yes, that can be done. But the thing is, when you are in islanding mode, what all is needed? See, when islanding mode is there, compulsory we have to go for batteries, because that is the one that will be helping us to peak shave, and also when there is no enough power from the renewable energy, then that is the batteries are the one that will help us to supply the load. Fine. That is yeah, that will come to the battery degradation and all we'll talk in the later session. That is we'll see that. Okay. Yeah, next thing is it is autonomous in nature. That is it is free by itself, and as it is autonomous, increasing the load or decreasing the load, or increasing the production of power, that is adding some solar panels to the microgrid, extra solar panels to the microgrid, everything, we don't have to depend on the interconnections. That is you don't have to depend on until the end of the grid. You have to only depend on the local thing. So you are autonomous. You can add more wind generation if it is available. You can add a fuel cell, or you can add a bloom box, anything which can improve for the local area actually. And then batteries must when it is in the islanding mode. That's what I was telling you in the previous slide. So autonomous is a major advantage of the microgrids. Okay. Next thing is US actually has a smart grid, advanced smart grid already available, smart meters, everything they have implemented. So although US has developed the technology, the scenario in India it is more relevant to Indian condition, because the rural electrification being a challenge, this particular DC microgrid and AC microgrid for Indian situation it is more relevant. So that's why lot of opportunities will pop up because of these microgrids and DC microgrids, as rural electrification is taking its acceleration. Yeah. So these are the things that we actually need for a DC microgrid. Fine. That is one. Next thing is the elements in DC microgrid. So what all you need for a DC microgrid? So as we know that we need both the conventional and the non-conventional generations, and then the load centers, that is either it can be AC or DC, and a network which can make the power to travel to one place to another place, and then control unit, which is more important, that is a major heart of the DC microgrid. And then storage, it is optional, because if you are not connecting to the main grid, then it is compulsory. If you are connecting to the main, if you are sorry,
Ganeshan sir.
yeah,
Ganeshan sir.
yes,
Sir, can you raise your voice a little bit? It is very low. Your whatever you are speaking is speaking. It is very low,
yeah.
audible. Can you raise
Okay.
your voice, please?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll do
okay.
that. I'll do that. Is it audible now? Is it?
Yeah, sure. Yes, sir. You can continue.
Yeah. So this elements in DC microgrid. When we are talking about elements in DC microgrid, see distributed generator units. That is the power sources. It can be wind, solar, and heating based power. And then load centers are both AC and DC. That is, it can be a battery also. Load can be electric vehicles also. And the distribution network, when we are talking about distribution networks, it will be the connection. That is, either it can be connected to a AC distribution network also by using the inverter and the transformers. And then the control units. That is the control units is that which will control the whole process of the DC microgrid. And then the storage. See, when you are having a electric power storage, that is batteries, it is optional, because if you are connecting it to the grid, we don't actually need it. But when you are not connecting it to the grid, it has to be having a electric power storage. So that is the element. So when we are talking about solar, wind, geothermal, waste to energy, combined heat and power, all these are renewable energy resources that we can use for as a generating unit. See, waste to power, the biogas and biogas to biogas power plant you can use, and bagasse based power plants you can use. And then geothermal, if sea from the sea you take the heat and then convert that into power. And combined heat and power system is where we use steam based power plants. So that is using water and heat for generating the power. So this solar, you know that it is a main part. When you are using a DC microgrid, solar is must almost, because it is already having a DC as the output, and so DC to DC converter, and you connect it to the DC grid. You have to have a MPPT algorithm to control the DC to DC converter. Fine. So this is PV for solar you can use. And wind, using a AC to DC converter, like the rectifier, and then some DC to DC converter you can use, and you can give it to the HVDC system, or you can give it to the DC microgrid itself. From the wind also you can convert to AC to DC and DC to DC. All these blocks are all that boxes that is under the wind turbine is AC to DC combined with DC to DC. Fine. So this is for the wind generators. And geothermal, it will be converting that into a heat energy, and turbine will move because of that, because of the heat variation. And then that will be connected to the generator, and generator you can rectify it and give it to the DC microgrid. Okay. And then here CHP, again water will be heated, and steam, and then because of that the electricity is generated on the turbine. And then again you'll be that is you can use it for heat, sorry, it is the combination of generation, and for heat also you can use. That is, if there is a diesel engine or anything, that heat will be recovered, and you will be using it for hot water, and that also you can give it to the building itself. So this is a CHP production. That is, you can have both the electricity production, and also the supplementary heat will be given to the building. Fine. And excess power, if it is there, it can be given to the grid. Fine. And then when we are talking about loads, now electric vehicle, it is a DC load, because it actually uses a onboard charger, which will be having a DC-DC converters, and will be connected to the battery. So electric vehicle is one of the DC load. And then DC LED light system. See, actually LEDs actually it is a DC system. That means that the power given to the LED is actually DC, but we connect it to AC. We use a AC to DC converter in between to convert that to DC, and we give it to the LED light. So if you are having a DC microgrid, then directly without that converter, some DC to DC converter alone we can use and light the LED light. And then electronics devices which uses battery from laptop, mobiles, whatever, all these many equipments are nowadays coming with batteries. So all those which is having batteries, the torch, everything, we can actually use take it as a DC loads. Yeah. And then here there is a thing we can look into. Some of the DC converters actually work for a universal input, that is 80. Actually it is not 110, it is 85 volt to 280 volt range it can work. If it is AC, it will convert that to DC, and we can use it for any DC loads. So that is the range. So you can have here it is AC, but the same range if it is in DC also you can use while you are using it in the train compartment. You can see that it is 110 volt DC only. Even if it is DC also, the range of the mobile chargers and laptop chargers are meant to work between 80 volt to 270 volt. So that range, even if it is there, only the batteries you can that is only the mobile you can charge, and only the laptops you can charge, because it is only 110 volt DC in train compartments, you can see. So the range is heavy. When you are having a DC converter, you can make it work for the full range. Fine. And then usual AC loads that is there in our homes, no? Those are all AC loads, you can take it. For the microgrid, most probably you will be having the residential loads only. So that's why we are mentioning only these AC loads, where we can use a inverter and you can use it. So, and then the major part in any microgrid or DC microgrid, you have to increase the smartness of it actually. So what all you need for increasing the smartness of this DC microgrid is you have to take the end user data, that is in order to have a strategic management. That means that maybe in the later years, if you have a end user data, in the later years you can forecast the load. So that also, the load forecasting also, we can make it smart only, so that it will automatically tell that we have to add more solar panels or add more wind systems for generating the power. And then weather data. See, actually if in some places in US they use heaters inside the house to maintain a particular temperature. Here we use AC to maintain a good comfortable temperature. So that if the weather data is there, we'll get to know that AC's whether it will be on or off. These kind of tactical management, that is called tactical management. Strategic is to whether to increase the number of panels and wind generators or not. That is strategic in nature. And then tactical is according to the weather prediction, whether today or tomorrow how much we'll be having the power usage. That we'll get to know by the weather data prediction. And then energy management and regulation. So here how we manage energy, that is whether we are today whether we are going to remove the load or not, how much load we are going to remove, whether if there is a little increase in the load, whether the battery can supply or not. So all these are energy management, and the regulation is to maintain the voltage in the particular level. It can't reduce the voltage, because the reduction of the voltage will actually lead to many power problems. Actually, that also the power quality problems also we are going to deal. So that mainly in DC microgrid, it is the DC voltage level only we will be maintaining. Fine. And then real time control. See, this is a major advantage of a DC microgrid, real time control, because see, when we are not connecting the grid, then the load, the power supply, everything has to be controlled by the control system that is there for the DC microgrid. It can't depend on when it can't depend on a main grid, then the variation in the load, variation in the solar and the wind input, everything is dependent on the microgrid itself, microgrid control itself. And battery plays a major role for charging and discharging. Both charging and discharging it does in a real time manner, that is, it will be very fast. So that we'll get to know that battery regulation also we are going to deal in the coming session, that is maybe in the tomorrow session we'll be having. So this is the major thing for control unit is the major thing. Fine. And then the options of power, power storage options are there. Here the major thing is that there are lot of chemistries coming in now. Battery is improving day by day, and I have mentioned it as optional, because when a grid is connected, most probably we don't need a battery, but when grid is not connected 100%, we need a battery. So here average power of the day is different from the peak power. So that is the major thing. We need a power storage, because average power, if it is 100 kilowatt, some 150 kilowatt at a particular hour, if there is a peak power coming in, then batteries will help to shave the peak power. That's what I had been telling in the advantages also. So supply from the renewable energy sources, it is stochastic in nature. That means that it is probabilistic, maybe randomly it changes. Renewable energy sources, the power supply is randomly changing. So that is the reason why we need again the power storage. And then when we talk about batteries, you have to choose batteries in a better way. So for that, some 2-3 points I'll tell, and I'll wind it up on this battery storage. See, there are when we are talking about lithium ion battery itself, there are around 5 to 6 chemistries. That is, chemistries means how the what is that, electrode and the ionic composition is actually combined. So that in lithium ion based only, there are 5 to 6 chemistries. They actually tell it as lithium polymer, that is one which has a 60 Celsius thermal runaway. When we talk about thermal runaway, that means that it can actually when it reaches 60 Celsius, then it will go and fire also. It can reach the firing temperature in a very fast manner. But lithium ferrous phosphate is the one now people tell it as lithium ion only, because that is a chemistry of lithium ion battery only. So lithium ferrous phosphate is the famous one right now. People, if you are buying it, you will get to know that lithium ferrous phosphate is the recent one which has a very good thermal runaway Celsius, that is 270 Celsius of thermal runaway. That is because even if it heats until 270 also, it doesn't go to firing range actually. And then other chemistries are there: nickel metal hydride, nickel cadmium, sealed lead acid batteries. And in lithium combination itself, lithium ion combination itself, there are other things: lithium manganese dioxide batteries, lithium sulfur dioxide batteries, lithium thionyl chloride batteries, and alkaline batteries. And then now which is going to hit the market in the coming years is magnesium sulfur, which is going to start its production in 2021, and lithium sulfur batteries. These two, it is going to hit the market in a better way, because the lithium sulfur battery has a better thermal runaway, and also it also has a better C rating. C rating is nothing but charging and how fast it can charge and discharge. That is the C rating. Maybe when we somebody is researching on fast charging and discharging, they will better know what is C rating. That is how fast. They tell it as C1, C2, C3, like that. C1 means for the full capacity it will take 1 hour to charge the battery, and 2 hours, like that it will take. So these are the C rate and thermal runaway are important things you have to learn when we are that is, you have to take it into care when we are using the batteries for the DC microgrid. And ultra capacitors, they are fast in reaction. Actually, the charging and discharging is very fast when we are using ultra capacitors. And then you can also use fuel cell also, but it is unidirectional. It doesn't have the bidirectional nature. So fuel cell, it can only be acting as a source, and if you want to charge it, you have to charge a battery, which has to be separate. And as we have already discussed about the components, and the converters are the major component that you have to always think of. What kind of DC to DC converters you have to use, what kind of AC to DC converters you have to use. The boost, buck boost, and SEPIC, all these converters, CUC converters, Zeta converters, all those are the rating of those are there, right? Isolated and non-isolated converters. Mostly for a higher power range, you will be using isolated converters or interleaved converters. These kind of converters, we will be using it for DC to DC conversion, because it needs higher current rating and voltage rating. The power rating of the boost converter, if it is near to 100 watt or something like that, until there it will be having a good efficiency. Above that, the efficiency of the boost converters will be very less. So in order to get rid of that, you have to use other converters, like forward converters, flyback converters, which is isolated and non-isolated converters, which is of higher rating. You have to use it here. Now recently interleaved converters, I think it will be better for these kind of PV panels, and it can be supplied to the DC bus. And when it comes to AC to DC, you can use either inverters and multi-level inverters. These kind of mainly the cascaded is having more advantage, because there are no other components except the MOSFETs, mostly the cascaded type of multi-level inverter. So that you can use for DC to AC conversion. Here DC to AC, where you will be connecting to the grid. So these are the components that are meant to be used when we are using the DC microgrids. Okay. And then energy storage, batteries. We have already dealt about that. And then we can talk about the DC microgrid characteristics. See, what is the characteristics of the DC microgrid? See, first thing what we had discussed is it has to have a bidirectional operation. There are two places where you need to be worried about bidirectional operation. When you are connecting it to the grid, the converter that is connected to the grid must also must have a bidirectional operation. So for that, choosing the converter which can act as a bidirectional operation. We are having this block here. You know that we are talking about rectifiers, but actually it is a converter, because AC to DC, when you are connecting from the grid to the DC microgrid, then it is rectifier. Okay, but when you want to supply it back to the grid, then it is inverter. So here you can take this as a converter only, not rectifier. You just take it as a converter. Here there are two types. One is line commutated and PFC. This line commutated we already know, that is we have got a thyristor and the diode based uncontrolled rectifiers. So here whether it is bidirectional or not is the question. Here the diode, it is not bidirectional. Thyristor, although it is bidirectional, it is having a problem of line commutation. Only if there is a reverse current it will switch off. So that is another disadvantage. But when it comes to PFC based, power factor correction based converters, you can see regenerative and regenerative are there. See, when you are having a regenerative, these are all non-regenerative, these are all unidirectional in nature. Boost, unidirectional. Vienna converter, you can it is a combination of rectifier and a converter. See, you rectify, while you rectify itself it will boost, while rectifying itself it may buck. That is Vienna rectifier is a combination of rectification and conversion combined in one. But whether it is regenerative is nothing but whether it is bidirectional, whether it can get the power back to the DC microgrid or not. No, it can't be. So that's why whatever inverter, three-phase inverter we are using, right, that can act, because it is made of IGBTs and MOSFETs, that can clearly act as a regenerative converter, where when we have a higher DC you can supply to the grid. When you have a higher grid power, then you can supply to the DC microgrid. So that is the advantage here when it comes to these converters. So the final converter we can choose is inverters only. Most probably that is the case that we'll be dealing. And then what are the characteristics of that's what we have been discussing. So the next characteristics is DG, ES and load, all three must be controlled in order to supply demand and to maintain stability. So the characteristics must be, first thing is bidirectional. It has to get the power and give back the power. That is one thing. Next thing is it has to automatically, whether if the load is higher, load shedding. If the load is higher and battery is able to supply, then battery has to supply. And when ES is that is energy storage is that is a battery. DG, when the distributed generator is powering higher power it can generate, then you don't need a battery. So these decision making must be taken care by the DC microgrid. Okay, and if it is connected to the microgrid, if it is connected to the main grid, then there is no issue of frequency variation if there is AC. And when you have a frequency variation, if there is a AC from the DC microgrid, if you are connecting to the AC grid, AC bunch of AC loads, then the grid inertia will be missing, because grid inertia is one thing which will help when the generators will help in maintaining the frequency for a while when there is a variation in the frequency. So that as the grid is not connected to the microgrid, that grid inertia must be taken care. So how can that grid inertia be taken care? By using the storage only. The batteries only has to take care about the grid inertia, because batteries has to push the voltage to be maintained in a constant way. So that and that is why energy storage, that is the battery, must also have a bidirectional nature. It has to take the power when it is higher and give back to the grid when it is microgrid when it is higher. So that is one thing. And when we have to start with the microgrid, we have to read about the standards of the microgrid controllers. See what kind of controllers you can use, specifications, that is what is the range of sensors and how it has to be connected, what is the those kind of microgrid controller specification. You can get it read when you have a IEEE standard 2037.7, that is for microgrid controllers. And when you are integrating and islanding the DGs from the main grid, whether you are connecting it or islanding it, both the things you have to read 1547.4 IEEE standard for getting to know about the standards, how what is the range of frequency you have to maintain, what is the range of voltage you have to maintain when you are integrating and when you want to island it. So this another thing is IRENA. IRENA, as I told you, it is a standard which actually maintains a standard for the renewable energy resources. So this is the DC microgrid characteristics. So when we what we need and how the characteristics of the DC microgrid must be, those things we have discussed now. And this power quality issues, actually when we are talking about power quality issues in DC microgrid, yeah, see you can see that the only control that we need to do in power in a DC microgrid is the voltage level, because we all know that the DC microgrid has only two lines, and we don't need voltage or frequency. We don't have to think about that, but only thing that you have to think about is the voltage level. Okay. And then it is dominant in reliability. Actually when it comes to other microgrids, the DC microgrid have the capability, higher capability to get work on the PQ issues. And then only thing is if there is a variation in the voltage, actual voltage and the actual constant voltage, the DC system must be there, that you have to maintain. For that, if there is a problem, if there is a problem between the actual voltage and the actual voltage that is coming right now, that has 4 different power problems actually, because of the voltage variation itself. DC microgrid has 4 different power quality issues. Hello, howda?